what we will tell our children in the future, what we will tell our grandchildren. They will be rather surprised that we knew about this deadly product, and yet we did nothing. Would we have given them pesticides to drink? Would we have given them poisons?
I have two cousins. One had cancer of the mouth. He went to Hawaii and they took his jaw, took his tongue, and for the last 3 years of his life, he was being fed by a straw. Why? Just so somebody else can get richer. Someone who doesn't even use it because they know it's not healthy for them. It's maddening.
In 1999, delegates from the 191 countries of the World Health Organization gathered in Geneva with hopes of reversing the deadly tobacco epidemic. They began developing the first global public health and corporate accountability treaty, the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which bans tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship, and protects public health policy from tobacco industry interference.
The Framework Convention on Tobacco Control is a global response to a global challenge. The challenge posed by the activities of tobacco transnationals, like Philip Morris, now called Altria, British American Tobacco, Japan Tobacco, and the rest of them. It is the challenge of globalizing poverty, death, and diseases through tobacco consumption. They have done that through aggressive marketing in my own country. They have done it through influencing public health policies.
As the burden of tobacco-related illness shifts to the global south, and as tobacco giants like Philip Morris, Altria, and their allies continue to use free trade arguments to undermine local tobacco control efforts, developing countries found themselves taking the lead in pushing for a strong treaty at negotiations in Geneva.
As tobacco sales have decreased in those Western countries where health promotion activities have been at work for many years, persuading the population that tobacco use is not a good thing, the tobacco industry began to look at overseas markets, and Africa was one huge market for a deadly product.
In the Philippines, on any given day, you can drive down the streets of major cities and see billboards, posters. Even in the smallest towns on the markets, you find posters advertising cigarettes, usually associated with some activity or event of one kind or another.
Globalization has been interpreted principally in terms of transfer of financial resources or investments, but not in terms of collective commitment to common good, of identifying global health as a common priority. And the FCTC for the first time addresses that particular issue by bringing the world together at the same table to collectively resolve to control tobacco, which is the #1 killer in the world.
Delegates were supported by many non-governmental organizations from around the world. One of the most active NGO networks was NAT, the Network for the Accountability of Tobacco Transnationals, founded by the US-based organization Infact in 1999. NAT provided delegates with research and technical assistance and mobilized grassroots support for a strong treaty.
Delighted to meet more of our South African colleagues. You've been great partners, and we hope to be partners on other health issues as well.
Our own history led us to think that, in fact, as one organization based in the US, was going to need partners globally to really have an effect on the tobacco issue.
So we have this amazing treaty that's...
So in 1999, Infact founded the Network for Accountability of Tobacco Transnationals, or NAT. And this includes consumer rights, environmental protection, faith-based, fair trade, and human rights organizations in more than 50 countries.
I truly don't think that we could have done this without strong NGO support, particularly from Infact, which collected material that we would otherwise not have had and put that material in a format where busy government negotiators could absorb it and think about it and engage in debate about it in the shortest possible time.
Today's news. You.
Non-governmental organizations were especially helpful in assisting country delegates to fight attempts to weaken the treaty by tobacco giants and their government allies.
The tobacco industry were really strong. They wanted to derail the entire process. And so we were fighting against a very powerful force. They have got money, resources to hire the most intelligent lawyers that they have.
Very often I came to this place by myself because we couldn't afford to come to a delegation that had 3 or 4 or 5 people. Sometimes I felt very alone. I mean, who was I from a small island nation, you know, to try to deal with people from Germany, from the United States, from Japan. It was very difficult for us who had very little experience in international treaty negotiations to always know whether we were being derailed by lies or whether there was a truth that we needed to understand.
Some delegates who didn't want a strong convention and wanted to water it down, they were saying, how can you ban advertising? That's free speech.
What happened in this process was really the U.S. government defending commercial rights ahead of the public interest and being much more concerned about the Marlboro Man as some illusion of free speech than about the health of kids in the U.S. and around the world.
This is the entrance that they came in this morning, so we're going to deliver our letter to Secretary Thompson and let him know that NGOs across the world were really concerned about the Bush administration's attempt to derail this treaty process. It's a little bit nerve-wracking because there's a lot of different doors to this place, so we're not sure where he's going to go in, but we've got a good plan, and we sure hope that our Secretary of Health and Human Services will take a few minutes to speak to a U.S.-based NGO. We definitely hope that this is an end to the obstructionist role that the U.S. has been playing.
Well, we've never played an obstructionist role, so we could hardly say that this would be the end of it.
Organizations such as Infact were very helpful, not only in terms of advising, but they were also reassuring.
One time I had to make a speech. Look, I seem to be the lone voice in here crying in the wilderness. And I felt like John the Baptist, and it's as if people were looking at me, what's wrong with her? She's going crazy. And then, when I came out, and persons from the NGOs, and Infact in particular, would say, you're doing very well. Thank you for your strong stance on this matter. It really puts you back on the road to sanity then.
Despite strong opposition from wealthy nations like the United States, Germany, and Japan, negotiations started to swing in favor of a strong treaty when the countries of the developing world began working together to stand up for the health of their people. The regions of Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and the Pacific and Caribbean islands pulled together, starting when African countries met in South Africa and took the unprecedented step of negotiating as a bloc.
I happened to be, after the Johannesburg meeting, the first person to take the floor when an intervention we thought was required. And I remember very clearly clearing my throat and then saying, I'm from South Africa, but I'm speaking on behalf of the 46 member states of the Afro region. And I just felt the whole room become silent and people's heads began to turn around. If we then could get consensus on the issues that were important to us, if ever it came to a vote, we felt that we would carry a great deal of power.
What the countries realized, like the small Pacific island countries, they realized that even though they are small, they have a very large role to play. They could harness the whole community of the developing world, together. And because they were together, they were able to negotiate with wealthy countries to agree to what they wanted.
Somehow the countries of the Global South decided to just stare down the U.S. and they held out particularly on the issue of public health and trade. And all of a sudden we had this dramatic reversal from a text that was weak and maybe not able to do what we need it to do to reverse the tobacco epidemic, to a text that suddenly contained so many of the elements that we've been fighting for. A comprehensive ban on tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship, and protection of public health policy from tobacco industry interference, the capacity to help prioritize public health and measures on liability of the tobacco industry. And so it fell into place at late in the night on the final Friday of the negotiations.
The resolution and WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control are adopted.
Eu confesso que eu fiquei muito emocionada e, inclusive, chorei um pouco, porque é um momento muito grande. A gente que enfrentou todas as dificuldades. Eu comecei a trabalhar no controle do tabaco em 1993, numa época em que a sociedade brasileira olhava para as pessoas que trabalhavam com o controle do tabaco como pessoas radicais, pessoas um pouco irracionais. E hoje a gente vê que esse processo de negociação deu uma maior consciência ao Brasil, à sociedade brasileira. E hoje, assim, para mim é um marco, é uma história, é um marco histórico na minha vida em termos de pessoa que lida com saúde pública, porque a gente sabe o quão difícil foi esse processo.
Everybody was making a speech. And I made a quote from a R.J. Reynolds executive when he was asked once by somebody if the tobacco executives smoke cigarettes. And he said, we don't smoke that as four-letter word. We reserve that right to the young, the poor, the black, and the stupid. And I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, most of us who have gone through this are from the poor nations. And we know that the tobacco industry has targeted us. I cannot change the color of my skin, so they're targeting me. We cannot prevent our children from passing through youth, so they'll target them. But we can stop them from calling us stupid with this FCTC.
Billions of people in generations to come will be healthier and will lead longer, more productive lives because we have chosen to act together.
It just made everything worthwhile. The 10 years of work that so many thousands of people have contributed to, millions of people have supported by boycotting Kraft. It all came together there to see us able to support people rising up to protect themselves from incredibly powerful economic forces.
The US NGOs took up the challenge and they challenged the government of President Bush. You know, they did letters, there were protests.
People gave us this energy and this strength to say that we're not just negotiating a small matter here, we are negotiating a big issue that affects everybody else's lives.
When we started this journey in the year 2000, I was not sure. I thought that it's going to be a losing battle because of the huge amount of resources accessible to the corporates. They'll use all kinds of tricks to make sure that we don't win. But fortunately, what we found was that if the will is there of the people to do something, it can be done.
There have been a whole range of rules written about how countries will trade with each other, and there are many binding arrangements that countries have agreed to that really limit their own sovereignty as nations. We have a great tool here to hold the tobacco giants accountable, but also to build off of in controlling and targeting other industries whose products or practices are harmful to health and the environment.
We have planted the seed, and we must nurture the seed to grow. I know that the tobacco industry has not given up. They'll take measures to ensure that now they'll approach countries, states at country levels. And this international solidarity is still needed.
It's a strong signal to the corporate world that it's no longer business as usual. You can no longer continue with your corporate abuses. That, the civil society groups are here, they are watching, and they will continue to mount pressure until the right policies are initiated and put in place. I mean, that is the essence of the FCTC.
About how countries will trade with each other, and there are many binding arrangements that countries have agreed to that really limit their own sovereignty as nations. We have a great tool here to hold the tobacco giants accountable, but also to build off of in controlling and targeting other industries whose products or practices are harmful to health and the environment.
We have planted the seed, and we must nurture the seed to grow. I know that the tobacco industry has not given up. They'll take measures to ensure that now they'll approach countries, states at country levels. And this international solidarity is still needed.
It's a strong signal to the corporate world that it's no longer business as usual. You can no longer continue with your corporate abuses. That, the civil society groups are here, they are watching, and they will continue to mount pressure until the right policies are initiated and put in place. I mean, that is the essence of the FCTC.